What's up, y'all? Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this Psytrance pluck. And it's a super simple two little patches. And basically what this consists of is a sub and a stab. And so the most basic version of this little sound right here is just a saw wave. That has a little bit of detuning, and then I do a couple things to it. The first thing, and most importantly, is there's a low pass 18 MG low 18 filter with this first LFO set to 16th notes. The rate is off, but you could also do like envelope or trigger on this if you wanted to. It's just plucking that low band there. Then the next thing that I send into that is this kind of like higher. So this one's pitched down 3 octaves, this one's pitched down 2 octaves, and the saw here doesn't have as much like high, it's not a ton of high frequency information. This one has a lot more, even pitched down an octave. So I'm using something with a lot of different like ups and downs in the wavetable. That's gonna mean more high harmonics, right? Then I send that into my low 18 filter and mix together. You get the like bass version of this, which is just a really fast pluck that happens. One of the things that you can do though to make Psytrance plucks a lot cooler and funner is add a pumping or like shaping element to them. So what I've done here is I've added, I'll first show what it does on the cutoff filter. So I've added this little upwards push. This is set to off and it's at a quarter rate. So for every 4 stabs that happen, it pushes that filter up, and I'll kind of accentuate it so you can really hear. And there's no wrong answers. Like if you wanted to do your pluck like that, you definitely could. Do whatever you think works. Do different shapes in here. Do whatever. So then I've also added it to a couple other things here. And I guess I'll just leave the filter on. No, I'll turn the filter off. So the first thing I've added it to is the bend mode. So just adding like a tonal or frequency adjusting element there. And then I've done the same thing to the saw. So you can kind of really see what this LFO is doing here. And then I've added it also to the blend. And what that does is the stereo width on this when the blend is turned down is a lot lower. When the blend's higher, it has more stereo. And then I've added this, which just basically is increasing the stereo every time the highest part of the pluck happens. So every time there's a really loud or open pluck, that's when the width of this is the highest. And then also I kept this one mono. That actually might even sound better. I've listened to this pluck enough times that I'm kind of getting tired of it, but you could do unison on this. You can do whatever you want. All right, I'm moving on because I don't want this to be a super long tutorial. Now I have this EQ, which looks like it does nothing, but what I've really done here is added 2 little just pumping bands. They just kind of add a little bit of texture to it. And what this one basically is doing, I mean, you can kind of see this, but at the highest point where this is up, it's adding more weight to that loudest little pluck part, or the most open pluck part. So I'll turn that back down. Kind of a subtle effect, but it does help a little bit. Then I just have a compressor that is relatively long. It's not a short attack, but it's not a long attack. What it is though is definitely longer than my transient. So 58 milliseconds is definitely not gonna like affect my transient at all. And then a really long release, which means it's not gonna like, if we were to like show a one of these, that's the pluck that I have so far. So like really long releases tend to not affect the dynamics of it that much. Or not so much the dynamics, but like they don't distort it, and they don't, they're more gluing and less like abrasive to the ear. It preserves the dynamics of the pluck. That's what I'm trying to say. So then we have the OTT that I put onto this. If you didn't know, you can mute bands. So like if I wanted this low band to not be affected, I could completely mute it. Or if I just don't want it to ever boost the low band, but I do want it to compress it. So here you can see by the numbers here, we're cutting about 20 decibels off of the lowest band here. The mid band's only getting boosted and never cut. And then I might as well turn that off because the high band is only being boosted as well. So just like brightens it up. The time's not adjusted here. But I just brought the depth down so until it got less clicky. And I'd say 70 is like a nice-ish sweet spot. Also, a little bit of outgain turned down. That just is turning the just gain staging my sound, so I'm not like running into louder and louder and louder. An EQ here, cutting room for the sub out, and boosting this kind of warm little mid sweet spot. The other thing too with these is like don't go crazy if you're really wanting like Psytrance sounding stuff. Don't get the highs too loud. Right, that's like dubstep. You don't want that if you're doing Psytrance. And also, if you're like doing a dubstep track where you want a Psytrance part, like don't be afraid to like not fill the spectrum completely, because then you have the full up and high spectrum part that you can fill with other stuff, other elements. Last thing is a saturation knob. I'm deeply afraid of this plugin because it always will crash sometimes. So it survived. That's all we need to know about that. So then as far as the effects on the mix bus, I just have a little compressor here with the shortest possible attack and then a little bit of a release, just kind of gluing the sound together while like not destroying my transients. And then I'm sending that into a V clipper, which is destroying my transients, which is why I put the compressor onto it. Because that's almost like poppy and plucky, or it's a little too poppy. But if you compress the peaks down just a little bit, and the whole sound down just a little bit, end up with that. Pretty subtle, but I think you get the idea there. Last thing I'll show is just the pumping sidechain. And that's just ducking out space for my kick, which is muted. Still. There we go. Since I got a second, because this is not that long of a tutorial, then I just added a little like wubby growly thing that I cut the highs off of. Right, time stretched it, pitched it to G sharp, little rhythmy sound, and I'm sweeping in an EQ on that, or not an E. I always say an EQ for everything. Sweeping in the wetness on a thing. Then this is a Patreon sample, so get on Patreon. And I just use the little wompy part. And so that's going to do it for this one, y'all. Thank you for watching. If you're already subscribed to Patreon, thank you. And if you're not, go get on Patreon. You get free samples every month. There's 100 of them. This is one of them. And I'll probably make some Psytrance stabs to like add to the sample pack for next month. So thank you for watching. See you in the next one.